Stances. What are they? What are they for? What's the point? Isn't fighting supposed to be something more dynamic? It's not just standing still in these choreographed positions in these worthless sequences we call the forms.
Martial arts is practical because real fighting is about dynamic movement, and these stances and these forms are just a bunch of sequences and dance moves and still positions that don't actually translate to a fight or self-defense scenario.
Well, that's nonsense. There's a whole lot of nonsense, misconceptions, misinformation, and confusion around the idea of a stance in the martial arts. Well, in this video, we'll set things straight and go into what a stance is, what it's for, what they're supposed to look like, and how we use them in our training. So if you think of the relationship between a still photo and a video, a lot of people think that, well, a picture, a photo is just one moment, and a video is, well, just a duration of time, and it's movement, and it's not just, it really has nothing to do with a photo. When in reality, a video is just a bunch of quickly taken photos. It's just one still shot after another done very quickly, right? So 24, 30, 60 or more frames per second to produce the illusion, the impression of movement. And so when we see that's happening fast enough, we process that as a movement, as if it's just normal dynamic activity. But a video is really just a whole bunch of pictures taken together. And so if you have a video that's, for example, 60 frames per second, that's pretty quick. And you take one of those snapshots of something moving. Well, in that snapshot, especially if it's a good camera, it's a good quality and it's timed right and all that, it's going to give you an idea, it's going to give you a piece of what's going on. But it's not the whole context, it's not everything, it's a snapshot, it's just a part of it. It's that particular instance in that dynamic movement. And so a dancer jumping up into the air, or a sprinter running, or something from nature. But a snapshot gives us a glimpse at a moment within the context of something else that's dynamic. And so if we think of all the movement that goes on in our training, in something like the martial arts, whether it's in one of the more sport components of it, like sparring or even grappling, or in self-defense, well, we have these dynamic movements, but if we zoom in and really analyze the details of what's going on with our weight distribution, with our energy, with where we're putting our force, where we're resisting movement, all of that, we'll see what we refer to as stances. And so one of the things we need to do is get away from that English connotation of a stance that is something stationary and unmoving, right? Because it's not. It's a snapshot of something that is moving, right? Or at least that there's some sort of energy transfer taking place. Right? If you think of the back stance, it's movement pulling backward. Even if I'm advancing forward, I'm pulling back toward this hip in some sort of a rotation. Maybe there's some more stability in something like a middle stance or a side stance, a horseside stance, but maybe there's movement sideways, maybe there's movement down or rotating around, pivoting around one side. And in a front stance, I might be resisting movement backward or pushing forward, but it's a dynamic thing. I'm not just sitting here in case somebody wants to tip me over. No, I'm actually actively pushing forward or resisting if somebody's pushing against me backward. And so each stance has a particular use or particular uses, and they have particular ways to be trained. They'll help us to understand those movement patterns and to grow in our agility according to those situations. If this video is being helpful so far, I would really appreciate it if you would give it a thumbs up and share it with someone else who could benefit from it. Thank you. So let's think about a front stance. A front stance means we're going forward or facing the front. We're pushing forward or resisting force backward. And so what it's going to look like, imagine I'm going forward and bringing my weight forward and I want to catch myself so I don't tip over. One foot's in back, one foot's in front. What I'm going to do is my strength will come from my back leg. And so I want to straighten that knee. And I want some give in the front leg, so I'll bend the front knee. I want my toes fairly forward. There's some variation in styles as to the toes, but I want, for this example, to be pretty square forward because I want to lock my back ankle, my back foot, because that's going to give me my stability if I'm resisting pressure backward, and it's going to give me my power for moving forward, pushing forward, right? This is just for stability. And so my toes should be forward. They can be a little out, I suppose, but really they're pretty much forward. And so I want to bend this front knee, so if I have good posture, my shoulders are square forward, which are not leaning to one side or the other necessarily. If I look down from here, I shouldn't be able to see my toes, and then I want maybe a couple inches more. Just have a nice, strong, deep front stance. All right, and if you're not used to that position, that might start to burn after a couple of seconds. And this other side, this back foot, might be kind of difficult, it might be kind of tricky, it might feel really tight if we're not used to this position. And so over time, this will get more comfortable, this will become more natural, but at first, you might find yourselves trying to cheat a little bit by rotating the foot out. But I want you to try to push your heel back and down. Have your knee straight, keep your toes forward, keep the front knee bent. And then the hands will do whatever they do, but this is a front stance, because that's a really strong position to be stable if somebody's trying to push us back and resisting that force backward, or to be pushing forward. So one way to practice our front stance, very simple, is we can start from our ready stance, and we'll start with stepping with the left foot out, and we just simply can go forward without adding too much other stuff to complicate it yet. If we're just learning it, we just step out in front so that we're about shoulder width apart, maybe a tiny bit farther out. And so then I want also to be comfortably far forward without it being way too far forward. And this will take some trial and error, so people have different lengths of legs and flexibility and agility and all that, because we want to find that happy medium, that balance between stability from the depth of the stance, and it'll look kind of cool if you want to take a picture or whatever, but then we don't want to sacrifice our agility too much, because if we make it super deep, then it might be kind of hard to get out of it and to move into the next motion or to react, because remember, this is just a transitory thing. It's a snapshot of movement. So this we can find. You can see that snapshot of the front stance as it happens in the context of an actual move. This, not so much. Right, so knowing what is too deep, and maybe not quite deep enough, will come from practice. Step out, make sure I bend my knee, and fix up my positioning so it's in the right spot, so it's not too wide, and it's not too narrow, and it's not too wide forward, too long, and not too short either. I want to try to keep my back heel on the ground, front heel too. I don't want to do that. So both heels on the ground, 10 toes forward, or however many toes you have. Keep the back legs straight, the front knee is bent enough so you can't see your toes, maybe a little bit more, make it harder for you. Then we step out into the next one. Make sure you're adjusting. If I feel myself being too wide this way, I want to fix it. If I'm too long this way, I want to fix it. Or if I find my back foot cheating because I'm tight in this back ankle and calf area and all that tendon, the Achilles, you want to be careful and try to stretch that out and get used to that position. Right? Because that's going to be a lot more sturdy than this, if that's what we're going for. So different stances, again, have different uses, but if we want what the front stance will give us, then we should practice the front stance, because that's what it's going to give us. So power for moving forward and stability for resisting pressure backward. All right, so then you can kind of sort of figure skate as you bring your feet together and back out this way. Feet together and back out this way. All right, so we're not really adding a whole lot of rotation to it yet. That'll come down the road, but that's a simple way to practice getting in and out of the stance as we're moving forward. All right, so that's a good first step. We go ahead and give that simple little drill a try. When you're ready to go deeper, there's a part 2 to this video on the front stance on how to implement rotation in motions such as like a high block or a low block, or even like a punch, to make our front stance even more powerful and to make that motion in the front stance even stronger. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, fruitful training and have a great life.